The first thing my ex-wife did after seeing me at the charity gala was laugh. Not loudly. Not enough for the entire room to turn around. Just enough for the people standing beside her to understand that I was the joke. Daniel? I turned. That voice had once been the one I wanted to hear every morning. Now it sounded like someone reading an old message they no longer cared about. Claire Whitmore stood there in a designer dress, one hand resting on the arm of the man beside her. Jason Vale. Her boyfriend. The reason our marriage ended. I had expected awkwardness. Maybe a cold greeting. I had not expected her to walk across the ballroom with him like she was approaching a stage. Look who it is, Claire said. Jason smiled. The kind of smile people used when they already believed they had one. Daniel Reed. I nodded once. Jason. Claire looked around. You came alone? That question was not curiosity. It was a performance. I glanced at the couples around us. Executives. Investors. Families. People who came to these events to be seen. Yes, I said. Claire tilted her head. Still? I knew exactly what she meant. Still alone. Still the same man. Still someone who did not belong in her new world. A year ago, that question would have hurt. Tonight, it only felt strange. Because I remembered a different version of Claire. The woman who used to sit beside me in our tiny apartment and say she did not care about status. The woman who told me she loved that I was calm when everyone else panicked. Somewhere along the way, that changed. Daniel has always been comfortable keeping things simple, Claire told Jason. Jason looked amused. That's one way to say it. I said nothing. Not because I had nothing to say. Because I had learned something after the divorce. People who wanted to embarrass you usually wanted a reaction more than they wanted the truth. Claire stepped closer. You know, I actually worried about you after we separated. I looked at her. You did? Of course. She smiled. I wondered if you would ever move on. Jason placed his hand around her waist. She doesn't need to worry anymore. Claire looked at him. The way she looked at him used to be the way she looked at me. That was the part that surprised me. Not that she had moved on. That I no longer wanted to compete. I'm happy for you, I said. Claire blinked. That was not the answer she expected. Are you? Yes. Jason laughed softly. Still pretending to be above it all? I looked at him. No. Then what? I mean it. That seemed to irritate him more than an argument would have. Before he could respond, a different voice interrupted. Interesting. Everyone nearby became quiet. Not because she raised her voice. Because nobody needed her to. Avery Sterling stood a few steps away. The CEO of Sterling Horizon Technologies. The woman most people in the room had spent the entire night trying to impress. She wore a dark emerald suit, no unnecessary jewelry, and the same calm expression she wore during interviews when reporters tried to corner her. Cold. Precise. Impossible to read. Except I had worked with her for almost 2 years. I knew better. Avery Sterling was not emotionless. She was selective. She looked at Claire. Then Jason. Then me. Is this conversation finished? Claire immediately changed her expression. Avery. The two women knew each other. That was not surprising. Everyone at this level knew everyone. I didn't realize you knew Daniel, Claire said. Avery looked at me. We worked together. Only 3 words. But something about the way she said them made Jason straighten slightly. Claire smiled. Right. Daniel works for you. The emphasis was obvious. Works for you. Not with you. Avery noticed. Of course she did. Daniel leads our emergency systems division. Claire's smile faded slightly. I almost smiled. That was Avery's way. She never defended someone with emotion. She used facts. Jason looked at me. You're still doing engineering? I nodded. Yes. After all this time? I looked at him. Yes. Avery's expression changed. Barely. But I noticed. She disliked him. Not because he insulted me. Because he underestimated me. That was something Avery had always hated. Underestimating people. Claire folded her arms. I suppose some people are comfortable staying where they are. There it was. The real reason she came over. Not to say hello. To remind me that she thought she had moved higher. I looked at her. Maybe. Avery stepped closer. Not enough to make a scene. Just enough. Then she did something I never expected. She reached for my hand. I looked at her. She did not look at me. She looked directly at Claire. And said, actually, Daniel has been offered 3 executive positions this year. Claire froze. I frowned slightly. Avery continued. He declined all 3. Jason looked surprised. Why? This time Avery looked at me, and the answer came from her. Because he wanted to build something himself. The room changed. Not dramatically, but enough. Because that sentence did not sound like a boss defending an employee. It sounded like someone who understood him. Claire noticed too. Her expression became complicated. You never told me that. I looked at her. We were divorced. A simple answer. A fair answer. For some reason, that hurt her more than anger would have. Before she could respond, the photographer announced the next couple's photo session. Mr. and Mrs. Vale? Claire immediately moved toward Jason, then stopped, because she saw Avery still holding my hand. Avery. Yes? You're taking a photo? Avery looked at the photographer, then at me. Yes. With Daniel? Yes. Claire laughed once. A small, uncertain laugh. That's unexpected. Avery's eyes remained calm. No. She looked at me. It isn't. I did not understand what she meant. Not until she turned toward the photographer. Take the photo. I whispered. Avery. She leaned slightly closer. Trust me. I should have asked why. I should have moved away. But something in her voice stopped me. The camera flashed. And for the first time since my divorce, I was standing beside a woman who was not embarrassed to be seen with me. Then Avery did something that made the entire room go silent. She turned toward me, placed one hand against my shoulder, and kissed me. Not a dramatic movie kiss. Not something reckless. Just enough. Just long enough for everyone watching to understand one thing. She had chosen me. When she pulled back, I was completely confused. Avery. She looked at me calmly, almost like she had just completed a business decision. Then she whispered, Now you can marry me. I stared at her, because there were many questions I wanted to ask. Why? When? What? But the biggest one was simple. Why did the coldest woman I had ever met just decide to become the most unexpected person in my life? And why did she look less nervous about kissing me in front of everyone than she did waiting for my answer? I did not ask Avery questions in front of 200 people. That was the first decision I made that night. Not because I was calm. I was not. My brain was still trying to process the fact that Avery Sterling, the woman who had spent 2 years correcting my reports with 3-word emails, had just kissed me at a charity gala and suggested marriage like she was discussing a business acquisition. The second decision I made was leaving the ballroom before someone else could turn my confusion into entertainment. Avery. She followed me outside. The terrace was quieter. The city lights reflected against the glass walls, and for the first time that evening, nobody was watching us. I turned around. What was that? Avery looked at me. What part? I stared. The kiss. I know. And the marriage comment. I know. You planned that? Yes. That answer should not have surprised me. It did. You planned to kiss me? Yes. At the gala? Yes. Why? Avery was silent for a moment. Not because she did not have an answer. Because she was choosing the right one. Because Claire was trying to make you feel like you were someone she had left behind. I frowned. That doesn't explain marrying me. No. She stepped closer. It explains why I stopped waiting. That was not what I expected. Waiting for what? For you to realize I was serious. I stared at her. Avery. Yes? You are my CEO. Not outside the office. That is not the point. It is part of the point. She looked away briefly. That was unusual. Avery Sterling avoided uncertainty better than anyone I knew. But tonight, I saw it. She was not afraid of the room. She was not afraid of Claire. She was afraid of my reaction. I need you to understand something, she said. I waited. I did not kiss you because Claire was there. Then why? Because Claire being there reminded me that you still believed nobody would choose you. That hit harder than I expected. Because she was right. After the divorce, I had convinced myself that being alone was easier. No explanations. No expectations. No disappointment. But hearing Avery say it out loud felt different. How long have you thought that? About you? Yes. She looked at me. Longer than you think. That answer created another question. A bigger one. How long? Before she answered, the terrace door opened. Her assistant, Mia Caldwell, stepped outside. Avery. Avery immediately turned. What? Your driver is waiting. Then Mia looked at me. She hesitated. Interesting. Mia was one of the few people who could speak honestly to Avery. What? Mia looked between us. Nothing. That means something. Mia sighed. You told me not to interrupt. I changed my mind. Mia nodded. Then I'll say it. She looked at Avery. You finally did it. Avery's expression became slightly uncomfortable. I noticed. You knew? Mia looked at me. Yes. About this? Yes. How long? 8 months. I looked at Avery. 8 months. You were planning this for 8 months? Avery immediately corrected. No. Mia smiled. That's not exactly true. Avery looked at her. Mia. I'm leaving. She walked away. I looked back at Avery. 8 months? She sighed. I was considering. Considering what? Whether I should tell you. Why wouldn't you? She looked at me like the answer was obvious. Because you worked for me. There it was. The real problem. Not Claire. Not the gala. Not the kiss. The boundary. Avery had always been careful. Maybe too careful. You knew this could be complicated. Yes. You knew people would talk. Yes. You knew I might think you were using your position. Yes. And you still did it? Her eyes met mine. Yes. Why? Her answer came quietly. Because I realized avoiding the possibility of hurting you was also a way of deciding for you. I remembered my own words to Evelyn. No. Different story. Need not. But okay. She has arc. Avery continued. I spent years making decisions for thousands of people. She looked toward the city. I thought control was responsibility. Then she looked back. But sometimes control is just fear wearing a professional name. That surprised me. Because Avery was not admitting weakness. She was admitting a mistake. I need to know something, I said. Ask. Did you plan the kiss because you wanted to prove something to Claire? No. Then why make it public? She took a breath. Because I have spent my entire life making sure nobody could question my decisions. And I did not want the first time I chose someone to be hidden. I did not have an answer for that. Because that was not a CEO speaking. That was a woman who had made a choice and accepted the consequences. The next morning, the consequences arrived. At 8:15, I received a meeting request from Human Resources. Subject: Professional Relationship Review. I stared at the email. Of course. The moment Avery kissed me, reality followed. I entered her office 30 minutes later. Avery was already there. Not behind her desk. Across from it. That small detail told me everything. She was not approaching this like my boss. She was approaching this like someone who knew she had created a problem. The review team will evaluate our working relationship. I nodded. Expected. I have already removed myself from your performance evaluations. That surprised me. You did? Yes. When? Last night. I frowned. You prepared that before the review? Yes. Avery. She looked at me. I will not let anyone say your career changed because of me. There was the problem. The sentence was correct. But something about it bothered me. What if I don't want you protecting me from everything? She stopped. I'm listening. I don't need you to make yourself smaller. Her expression changed. I am not. You are. No. Yes. I stepped closer. You kissed me in front of everyone because you wanted to choose me. Yes. Then don't immediately act like choosing me means removing yourself from every part of my life. She was quiet, because she knew I was right. That was the thing about Avery. She could argue with anyone, but not with the truth. I don't know how to do this. The admission was so unexpected that I almost missed it. What? She looked away. This. Avery Sterling. The woman who negotiated billion-dollar contracts. The woman who never appeared uncertain. Was standing in front of me admitting she did not know how to have a relationship. I softened. Good. She looked at me. Good? Yes. Why? Because neither do I. For the first time that morning, she smiled. Small. Real. Then her phone rang. She checked the screen. The smile disappeared. Who is it? She showed me. Claire. My ex-wife. I frowned. Why is she calling you? Avery looked at the phone. Then at me. I don't know. The phone kept ringing. And somehow, that felt more dangerous than the gala. Because Claire had spent the entire night trying to prove I had been replaced. Now she was calling the woman who had just chosen me. I looked at Avery. She answered. Hello, Claire. I could not hear Claire's voice. But I saw Avery's expression change. Not anger. Not surprise. Recognition. Then Avery said something that made me realize the gala was only the beginning. No. A pause. I am not interested in discussing whether Daniel deserves someone better. She looked at me. Her voice became colder. I am interested in why you suddenly care now that someone else does. And then Claire said something that made Avery go completely still. Avery lowered the phone slightly. Daniel. I looked at her. What? She held my gaze. Your divorce agreement has a problem. My stomach tightened. What problem? She looked back at the phone. Then said, Claire says she never signed the final settlement. I stared. Because if that was true, then the woman who had come to humiliate me last night had just opened a door neither of us expected. And behind that door was a question I thought had already been answered. Was I actually free to move on? The divorce settlement issue should have been simple. That was what I told myself. A paperwork mistake. A signature problem. A technical issue that lawyers could solve while everyone moved on with their lives. But nothing involving Claire Whitmore had been simple for a long time. The next morning, Avery arranged a meeting with a family law attorney. Not her company lawyer. Not someone from Sterling Horizon. A completely independent attorney. I noticed that immediately. You chose someone outside your company. Yes. Why? Because I don't want anyone questioning whose interests are being protected. I looked at her. You really thought of everything. No. That answer surprised me. No? She shook her head. I am learning to think of the right things. That was a different Avery. The old Avery would have said she had everything handled. This one admitted she was still figuring things out. The attorney, Rachel Morgan, reviewed the documents for almost an hour. Finally, she placed the folder down. The divorce is technically valid. I relaxed slightly. Then what was Claire talking about? Rachel looked at the final settlement papers. There is a missing acknowledgement page. What does that mean? It means the court accepted the divorce judgment, but the property settlement agreement attached to it has an incomplete signature record. I frowned. So legally, some financial arrangements from the settlement may not be enforceable. I looked at Avery. She was already understanding the consequences. What arrangements? Rachel looked at me. Your business assets. I felt my expression change. What about them? During the divorce, you transferred ownership of several early patents and consulting rights to Claire as part of the settlement. I nodded slowly. At the time, it had not mattered. Those patents were not worth much yet. Or at least, nobody thought they were. I remember. Rachel continued. Those assets later became part of Claire's company valuation. I looked down. That was the part one hated. Not the money. The idea. I had spent years building things. Then during the divorce, I walked away because I wanted peace. Claire had called it maturity. I had called it closure. Now it looked more complicated. Avery noticed my expression. Daniel. I'm fine. No. I looked at her. You don't get to decide that. That made me pause. Because it sounded exactly like something I would say to her. A small smile appeared on her face. You are using my own argument. Yes. Annoying. Very. Rachel cleared her throat. I should mention something else. I looked back. What? Claire did not contact Mr. Reed because she suddenly remembered the paperwork. Then why? Rachel hesitated. Because someone discovered the issue before she did. Who? We don't know. That was the first thing that bothered me. Not because it sounded mysterious. Because it sounded like someone had been watching the situation. Avery immediately asked. When did Claire learn? Rachel checked her notes. Yesterday afternoon. The gala. Before she came to me. Before she embarrassed me. Before Avery kissed me. I looked at Avery. She was thinking. I knew that look. What? She did not answer immediately. That means Claire approached you without knowing whether she still had legal leverage. Meaning? She was not there because of the settlement. I understood. She was there because she wanted to show me she moved on. Yes. And Jason? Avery's expression hardened slightly. Probably part of the performance. That bothered me more than I expected. Not because Claire had moved on. Because I suddenly realized something. She had not actually moved on. She had needed me to see that she had. There was a difference. After the meeting, Avery and I walked outside. For once, she did not immediately start solving. She just walked beside me. You're quiet. I'm thinking. About Claire? About myself. That made her look at me. I gave up a lot during that marriage. Yes. I told myself I didn't care. Yes. But maybe I did. Avery stopped walking. Daniel. I'm not saying I want anything from her. I know. I don't. I know. I looked at her. How do you know? Because when Claire walked into that gala, you did not look angry. No. No. She looked at me carefully. You looked disappointed. That was accurate. And somehow, hearing her say it made it real. I thought losing the marriage would be the hardest part. What was? Realizing I spent years trying to prove I was worth staying for. Avery was silent. Then she said something I did not expect. I understand. I looked at her. You do? Yes. You? She nodded. My entire career has been built around proving I belong in rooms where people expected me not to. That was the first time she had connected her story to mine. Not as advice. As understanding. Maybe that's why I noticed you. Because I was miserable? No. She looked at me. Because you stopped trying to impress people. That caught me off guard. I was divorced. Yes. I had nothing to prove. Exactly. Avery smiled slightly. You were the only person in the room who didn't need anything from me. That sounds almost romantic. It is. I laughed. That was becoming dangerous. Because every time Avery said something direct, I expected it to sound awkward. It never did. It sounded honest. Then my phone rang. This time, it was Claire. I looked at Avery. She did not tell me to answer. She did not tell me not to. She simply waited. I answered. Hello. Claire's voice was different. Not confident. Not mocking. Daniel. Claire. I need to talk to you. About the settlement? A pause. Yes. I already have lawyers looking into it. I know. That surprised me. You know? Yes. How? Another pause. Then. Because Jason told me. I frowned. Jason? He found out before I did. That changed the situation. Why would he tell you? Silence. Then Claire said. Because he was worried. About what? Her answer was quiet. About what happens if the agreement gets challenged. I understood. Jason was not worried about Claire. He was worried about himself. Before I could respond, Claire asked. Are you with her? I knew who she meant. Avery. Yes. Another pause. Then Claire said something I never expected. Does she know what I did? My expression changed. What did you do? Silence. Longer this time. Then. Daniel, I didn't bring Jason to that gala because I wanted to hurt you. I almost laughed. Really? No. Her voice cracked slightly. I brought him because I wanted to prove something. What? That I was okay. I looked at the city ahead. And were you? She did not answer. That was the answer. Then she said, I made a mistake. I heard Avery quietly ask. What happened? I covered the phone. Claire. Avery nodded. She did not ask me to put her on speaker. She trusted me. Claire continued. The settlement problem isn't the only issue. What else? Jason didn't just find the paperwork problem. My expression changed. Then what did he find? A pause. Then. He found out why you agreed to give me everything. I frowned. I don't understand. Claire's voice became quieter. Because you thought I was leaving because you weren't enough. The words landed harder than I expected. But that wasn't the real reason. I stood still. What are you saying? Claire took a breath. I was angry at myself. I blamed you because admitting the truth was easier than facing it. What truth? The answer came. And it changed how I understood the entire marriage. I stopped loving the life we had. I said nothing. Then Claire added. And I blamed you because you were the person closest to me. The call ended. I stood there holding the phone. Not angry. Not relieved. Just processing. Avery walked closer. What did she say? I looked at her. She said she made a mistake. Avery waited. And? I looked toward the street. She said something important. What? I took a breath. She said she left because she wanted a different life. I looked at Avery. Not because I wasn't enough. For some reason, that sentence felt heavier than any apology Claire could have given me. Because maybe the hardest thing after losing someone was not losing them. It was carrying the wrong reason why. Avery reached for my hand. Not dramatically. Not to claim me. Just to remind me she was there. Then her phone rang. Mia. Avery answered. Tell me. A pause. Her expression changed. What do you mean the board meeting was moved? I looked at her. She listened. Then. Who requested it? Another pause. Her eyes met mine. And I knew immediately. Whatever came next was connected to me. Because Avery's voice became colder. Claire Whitmore, the woman who had brought her boyfriend to humiliate me, had just requested a meeting with Avery Sterling's board. The first thing Avery did after hearing Claire's name was not get angry. That was what surprised me. I expected the CEO's side of her to appear. The cold voice. The careful strategy. The person who could dismantle a business argument in 3 sentences. Instead, She simply asked me a one question. Why? Not what. Not how. Why? That told me everything. Avery knew something I did not. Mia answered quietly. I don't have the full reason yet. Find out. I will. The call ended. I looked at Avery. Your board meeting. Yes. With Claire. Yes. Why would my ex-wife want to meet your board? Avery looked at the city through the window. That is the question. You have a theory. I have several. Which one bothers you? She looked back at me. That she might think she can use our relationship as leverage. That bothered me too. Not because Claire was powerful. She was not. But because I knew her. Claire was not someone who attacked directly. She convinced herself she was being reasonable. She made people feel guilty until they gave her what she wanted. I had spent years learning that. Avery. Yes? If she tries to use me to pressure you. I know. No. She looked at me. You don't. I smiled slightly. Borrowing your line. She almost smiled. Annoying. Very. I continued. I don't want you fighting this because of me. Her expression changed. Daniel. I mean it. I know. You have a company to protect. I know. You have employees. I know. And a board. I know. I waited. Then she said, I also have a choice. That stopped me. Because she was right. I had spent years trying to make sure I was not a burden. But sometimes that became another form of deciding for someone else. Avery was not weak. She was not someone I needed to save. She was someone I needed to trust. The board meeting was scheduled for Friday. Avery asked me not to attend. That surprised me. Why? Because this is my company. I nodded. And I do not want you sitting there while people discuss you as if you are a business issue. That answer was so Avery. Protective. But not controlling. You're sure? Yes. Not because you want to handle everything yourself? She looked at me. No. Really? No. She sighed. I want to handle everything myself. I laughed. But I know that wanting something does not mean it is right. That was the difference. She knew. Friday came. I spent the morning trying not to check my phone every 5 minutes. I failed. At noon, Avery sent me one message. The meeting is over. I stared at it. No explanation. Very Avery. I called. She answered. How did it go? A pause. Complicated. That word coming from Avery meant something. What happened? Claire did not come alone. I sat up. Jason? No. Then who? The attorney who handled your divorce. That surprised me. Why? Because Claire claimed there was a conflict. What conflict? She said your divorce agreement was unfair because you made decisions while emotionally vulnerable. I closed my eyes. Of course. Claire had found a way to turn my kindness into a weakness. What did your board say? They listened. And? They asked questions. About you? Yes. I hated that. Not because she was being questioned. Because I knew Avery hated explaining personal things. What did you say? I answered. What? She was quiet. Then. I told them the truth. I waited. I told them I know Daniel Reed professionally and personally. My chest tightened. That sounds risky. It was. Why say it? Because hiding it would make it look like something shameful. That was Avery. She would rather face a problem directly than pretend it did not exist. What happens now? The board wants an internal review. I frowned. Of you? Yes. Because of me? No. The answer came immediately. Because of perception. I understood. Even if nothing improper happened, leadership was about trust. Avery had built her career on credibility. A personal relationship with an employee created questions. Not because the relationship was wrong. Because power changed how people saw things. What are you going to do? Another pause. I will remove myself from the review process. I sighed. Avery. I know. You're doing it again. I am not. You are. She went quiet. Then. Maybe. That was progress. Old Avery would have argued. New Avery admitted. Then what should I do? The question surprised me. Not because she asked. Because she sounded like she genuinely wanted my answer. I thought carefully. Don't run. I'm not running. You're stepping away. To protect the company. Yes. But don't make yourself disappear every time loving someone creates a complication. Silence. Then. That is difficult. I know. Why do you always understand the difficult parts? Because I have them too. That was the first time neither of us pretended to be stronger than we were. The following week became uncomfortable. Not dramatic. Just uncomfortable. People whispered. Some employees avoided conversations. Some executives suddenly became very polite. I hated that more than open criticism. At least open criticism had a face. Then Claire appeared again. Not at my apartment. Not at my workplace. At a coffee shop near my office. I almost walked away. Almost. But she looked different. Not confident. Not victorious. Tired. Daniel. I stopped. What do you want? She looked down. I owe you an apology. I did not answer. Because I did not know if I wanted one. I was cruel at the gala. Yes. I wanted you to see that I had moved on. You wanted me to believe you won. She looked away. Yes. And I realized something. What? She smiled sadly. You didn't care. That was true. Not because I hated her. Because I had finally stopped measuring myself by her opinion. I'm sorry. I nodded. Thank you. She looked surprised. That's it? What else should I say? I don't know. Neither did I. Because closure was not always dramatic. Sometimes it was just realizing there was nothing left to fight for. Then Claire said something else. Something I did not expect. Avery really loves you. I looked at her. Why are you saying that? Because I saw her at the gala. You saw a kiss. No. She shook her head. I saw how she looked at you before she kissed you. I said nothing. Claire continued. She wasn't trying to hurt me. No. No. She looked down. She was trying to make sure you knew someone was choosing you. That sentence stayed with me. Because maybe Claire understood something I had not. The problem was never whether Avery wanted me. The problem was whether I believed I deserved someone like her. That night, I went to Avery's office. Not because there was a crisis. Because I needed to say something. Her assistant looked surprised. Mr. Reed? Is she free? Mia smiled slightly. She has been waiting for you. I walked in. Avery looked up. You're here. Yes. Something happened? No. She looked confused. No. No. Then why? I stepped closer. Because I realized something. She waited. I spent a long time thinking people left because I wasn't enough. Her expression softened. And I think I spent too much time waiting for someone to prove me wrong. Avery stood. Daniel. I don't want you choosing me because you feel sorry for me. I don't. I don't want you fighting everyone because of me. I know. I don't want to be another responsibility. Her eyes became serious. You aren't. I know. I smiled. I'm learning. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Avery reached for my hand. Not in front of anyone. Not to prove anything. Just because she wanted to. I need to tell you something. What? The board review has a final decision tomorrow. And? She looked at me. I already know what I'm going to do. What? Her answer was quiet. I am going to step down from the project oversight role connected to your division. I frowned. Your choice? Yes. Because you want to? Yes. Or because you think you have to? She looked at me. And this time, the answer came differently. Because I choose to protect something more important than my position. My heart tightened. What? She squeezed my hand. Trust. Then her phone rang. She checked the screen. Mia. Avery answered. Her expression changed. Are you sure? A pause. Then. Send me the report. She ended the call. What happened? She looked at me. The board found something. What? She turned the phone toward me. On the screen was a document. A company report. With Claire Whitmore's name attached. And suddenly, I understood. Claire had not come to the gala just to humiliate me. She had not contacted Avery just because of the divorce. She had been trying to solve a problem. A problem much bigger than my marriage. Avery looked at me. Daniel. Yes? Your ex-wife's company may collapse. I stared at the screen. Because the woman who once walked away from me was now standing at the edge of losing everything. And the strangest part was this. I did not feel satisfaction. I felt sorry for her. I thought seeing Claire lose everything would make me feel something. Anger. Satisfaction. Maybe even relief. But when I looked at the report on Avery's phone, I felt something completely different. Disappointment. Not in Claire. In myself. Because a year ago, I would have taken this personally. I would have thought. She left me. Now she is paying for it. But standing beside Avery, I realized something had changed. I no longer needed Claire to regret losing me. I had already moved on. What happens to her company? Avery locked her phone. That depends. On what? Whether the problems can be fixed. Can they? She did not answer immediately. That meant the answer was complicated. Daniel. Yes? I need to ask you something. What? If Claire's company survives. She stopped. I waited. Would you want your assets back? That question caught me off guard. Because technically, I could. The legal issues around the divorce settlement meant some of the transfers could be challenged. The patents. The consulting rights. The early designs I had created before my marriage ended. They were mine. But that was not the same as wanting them. I don't know. Avery looked at me. That is honest. I'm not interested in destroying her. I know. I'm also not interested in pretending what happened doesn't matter. I know. I smiled. You always know. Not always. That answer surprised me. She continued. I know you better now. There was a difference. Not because she had studied me. Because she had listened. The next day, I met with Rachel Morgan again. This time, Avery did not attend. I noticed. You're letting me handle this? She smiled slightly. I am learning. I laughed. Still strange. Yes. Rachel explained the situation. The missing settlement documentation created options. Not automatic victory. Options. Claire's company had built much of its value around the patents I had transferred. If challenged, investors could question ownership. Contracts could be delayed. The company could face serious problems. So what do you recommend? Rachel looked at me. That depends on what you want. That answer mattered. Because everyone kept asking what was legally possible. Nobody asked what I wanted. I want a fair solution. That may not satisfy everyone. I know. Claire included. I know. Rachel nodded. Then we negotiate. Simple. No revenge. No public humiliation. No dramatic battle. Just a decision. When I left the office, I saw Claire waiting outside. She looked surprised. Daniel. I stopped. You knew? Yes. About the patents? I nodded. She looked down. For the first time since I met her, she seemed smaller. Not weak. Just tired. I didn't know Jason knew about them. That sentence immediately caught my attention. What does Jason have to do with this? Claire hesitated. That hesitation told me enough. Claire. She looked away. Jason invested in my company. I frowned. Invested? Yes. How much? That's not the point. It is if his investment depends on my assets. She said nothing. And that was the answer. The relationship suddenly looked different. Not because Jason had money. Because I started wondering whether Claire had been chasing a new life. Or someone else's approval. Did he know about the settlement issue? Claire nodded slowly. Yes. When? Before the gala. I looked at her. Before you brought him there? Her eyes filled with regret. Yes. That hurt more than I expected. Not because she brought him. Because she knew there was a problem and still decided to use that night to prove she was winning. Why? She swallowed. Because I thought if I showed you I was happy, I would finally believe it myself. That was the most honest thing she had ever told me. And somehow, that made it worse. You didn't have to prove anything to me. I know. No. I looked at her. You know now. She looked down. Yes. For a moment, we just stood there. Two people who once thought they understood each other. And were completely wrong. Then Claire asked. Does Avery know? Yes. Everything? Yes. Claire nodded. She still chose you. It was not a question. Yes. A small, painful smile appeared. I don't understand her. Neither do I sometimes. Claire almost laughed. That's probably why she's good for you. I looked at her. What does that mean? You spent our whole marriage trying to make yourself easier to love. That sentence hit harder than I expected. Claire. I'm serious. She looked at me. Avery doesn't want you easier. She paused. She wants you exactly as you are. I had no response. Because that was the thing I was still learning. Avery never asked me to become someone else. She never asked me to be richer, more impressive, more connected. She had seen me when I was just Daniel Reed. And somehow, that had been enough. That evening, I went to Avery's office. She was still working. Of course. You're here late. So are you. I own the company. That is not an excuse. Her eyebrow lifted. You are becoming difficult. I learn from the best. She almost smiled. Then she noticed my expression. What happened? I told her about Claire. About Jason. About the investment. About everything. When I finished, Avery was quiet. What? She looked at me. I expected you to be angry. I was. And? And I'm not anymore. She nodded. That is growth. I laughed. Did you just analyze me? Yes. CEO habit? No. What then? She stepped closer. Someone who cares about you habit. That was different. Before I could answer, she continued. I want to tell you something. Okay. When I first saw you at Sterling Horizon, I smiled. Was I fixing something? No. Was I arguing with someone? No. Then? You were helping a new employee carry equipment. I frowned. That was 3 years ago. Yes. I barely remember. I do. Why? Her answer was quiet. Because everyone in that building wanted me to notice them. She looked at me. You were the only person who didn't. I understood then. Avery had not fallen for my achievements. She had noticed my absence of ambition for her approval. That was what made her curious. You like me because I ignored you. No. She shook her head. I like you because you treated me like a person. That was the first time she said it. Not a grand confession. Not a dramatic moment. Just the truth. My phone rang. Rachel. I answered. Hello? Daniel, we have a problem. I immediately stood straighter. What happened? The investor group behind Claire's company has made a move. What kind of move? A pause. They want to buy out her remaining shares. I frowned. Why? Rachel's voice lowered. Because they believe the company is about to collapse. I looked at Avery. She was already understanding. Jason. Avery said his name quietly. I nodded. Rachel continued. There is one more thing. What? The buyer has a condition. What condition? They want Claire to sign over control. I closed my eyes. The picture became clearer. Jason had not just been standing beside Claire at the gala. He had been waiting. Waiting for her company to become vulnerable. Waiting for the assets. The reputation. The value. Avery looked at me. Daniel. Yes? You need to decide something. What? She looked serious. If you challenge the settlement, you can protect what is yours. And? You can also destroy Claire. I knew what she meant. This was not about revenge. It was about choosing what kind of person I wanted to be after everything. The woman who kissed me in front of everyone was not asking me to win. She was asking me to choose. And for the first time, I realized something. Avery Sterling was not trying to save me. She was trusting me to save myself. I spent that night awake. Not because I was angry. That would have been easier. Anger gave people direction. It told them what to destroy, what to fight, what to take back. But I was not angry. I was standing in the middle of two choices, and neither one was simple. I could challenge the divorce settlement. I could reclaim the patents. I could watch Claire's company collapse under the weight of decisions she had made. Legally, I would have a strong case. Emotionally, I would probably feel justified. But that was the problem. I did not want justice because it was right. I wanted it because I was hurt. And I did not want my future built on a wound from my past. The next morning, I called Rachel. I want to negotiate. She was quiet for a moment. That is not what I expected. What did you expect? Most people in your position want everything returned. I understand. And you don't? I want what is fair. Rachel nodded. Then we need Claire involved. I know. And Jason? I thought about him. The man who stood beside Claire at the gala. The man who smiled because he believed I was beneath him. The man who now wanted the company she built. No. Rachel paused. No, I don't want to negotiate with him. Why? Because this isn't his company. That was the point. Claire made mistakes. She made choices. But she was not a possession waiting for someone else to control. Rachel understood. Then I'll arrange a meeting. Before I hung up, she said, Daniel? Yeah. Most people think winning means getting everything back. And? Sometimes winning is deciding what you refuse to become. I thought about that. Because a year ago, I would have laughed at that kind of sentence. Now I understood it. When I arrived at the meeting, Claire looked exhausted. No designer dress. No perfect appearance. Just Claire. The woman I used to know. Jason was not there. That was intentional. I'm surprised you came alone, I said. She looked down. He's busy. The bitterness in her voice was obvious. What happened? She laughed quietly. Turns out someone who tells you he believes in your dreams may only believe in what he can take from them. I sat across from her. For a second, I felt sorry for her. Then I remembered something. Feeling sorry for someone did not erase what they did. I want to talk about the settlement. She nodded. I know. I don't want your company. That surprised her. You don't? No. Why? Because I built those patents to solve problems, not to punish people. She looked at me, then quietly said, You really are different. I almost smiled. No. She frowned. No, I'm the same person. That mattered. I just stopped letting people convince me I wasn't enough. Claire looked away. That sentence hurt her. But it was true. We spent 2 hours negotiating. Not emotionally. Not as ex-husband and ex-wife. As two people trying to clean up the consequences of a relationship that had ended badly. By the end, we reached an agreement. I would regain ownership of the patents. Claire would keep the company structure she built. She would remove Jason's investment rights. She would rebuild without pretending everything had been perfect. When we finished, she signed. Then she looked at me. Why are you helping me? I thought about it. I'm not helping you. She looked surprised. I'm choosing not to hurt you. That was the difference. She nodded slowly. I deserved that answer. When I left, Avery was waiting outside. I stopped. You were here? Yes. Why? She looked at me. Because I wanted to know how you felt afterward. Not what happened. Not whether we won. How I felt. That was Avery. Always going deeper than the obvious answer. And? I thought about it. Lighter. She nodded. Good. I laughed. You really love that word. Yes. Why? Because I don't say it unless I mean it. I smiled. Then she did something unexpected. She reached into her bag. Pulled out a small box. I looked at it. What is that? Something I should have given you earlier. My expression changed. Avery. Relax. She almost smiled. It is not what you think. I opened the box. Inside was a watch. Simple. Not expensive looking. Not covered in diamonds. Just a classic watch. I looked at her. Why? Because you keep checking your phone to know what time it is. I laughed. That's your reason? No. She looked at the watch. It belonged to my grandfather. That surprised me. I can't take this. Yes, you can. Avery. My grandfather gave it to my father when he retired. She paused. Then my father gave it to me when I became CEO. I looked at the watch. Why give it to me? Her answer was quiet. Because I used to think success meant carrying everything alone. She looked at me. Then I met someone who reminded me that a life is not measured by how much weight you can carry. That was not just a gift. It was her admitting something. She did not want to build a life where we both carry everything separately. She wanted to share it. I put the watch on. It fit perfectly. You planned the size? No. I looked at her. She hesitated. I guessed. I laughed. That might be the most normal thing you've ever said. Don't get used to it. Too late. For the first time, she laughed openly. Not a small smile. A real laugh. Then her phone rang. She looked at the screen. Her expression changed. Who? Claire's attorney. That's fast. She answered. A few seconds later, her face became serious. What do you mean? She listened. Then. No. Another pause. That is not acceptable. She ended the call. What happened? She looked at me. The settlement agreement is done. Okay. But Jason already made another move. I frowned. How? He sold information about Claire's company to a competitor. That doesn't involve me. No. She looked at me. It involves me. I understood. What did he sell? Information from the board review. Your company? Yes. The pieces came together. Jason was not just targeting Claire. He was looking for any weakness he could exploit. And now he had chosen the wrong company. Avery's company. What are you going to do? She looked at me. The old Avery would have answered immediately. She would have built a strategy. Destroyed the problem. Moved forward. Instead, she said, I don't know yet. I blinked. You don't know? No. That was rare. Then she looked at me. But I know one thing. What? I don't want to become someone who wins by losing herself. That was the biggest change I had seen. Avery Sterling no longer measured victory by control. She measured it by what remained afterward. Then she reached for my hand. Daniel. Yeah? There is something else. What? She looked almost nervous. After everything is settled. I waited. She took a breath. I still meant what I said at the gala. My heart moved slightly. The marriage part? Yes. Avery. I know. She squeezed my hand. I know it was sudden. Very. I know it was impossible timing. Extremely. And I know you are not ready to answer. I looked at her. Are you sure? Yes. Why? Her answer was simple. Because I don't want a husband who says yes because I asked. I smiled. Then what do you want? She looked at me. I want the man who says yes because he chooses me. Before I could answer, her phone received a message. She checked it, then froze. What? She turned the screen toward me. It was from the board. A final decision. Not about Jason. Not about Claire. About Avery. Emergency leadership vote scheduled tomorrow. I looked at her. What does that mean? Her expression was calm. But I knew her. Something was wrong. It means they are deciding whether I should remain CEO. And suddenly, the woman who had spent the entire story choosing me was facing the one choice she had never imagined. Whether she still had a place at the top. The first thing Avery did when she received the board notice was close the message. Not delete it. Not forward it. Just close it. That told me more than any reaction could. Avery Sterling was someone who could read a 1,000-page contract in one night and find the one sentence everyone else missed. She could walk into a room full of investors and know exactly who was uncertain before they said a word. But this time, she did not immediately calculate. She simply sat there. Avery. I'm fine. I almost smiled. That's the first thing people say when they're not fine. She looked at me. You have become very annoying. Your influence. A small smile appeared, then disappeared. I knew this was possible. What? The board questioning my position. Because of Jason? Partly. And partly? She looked down. Because of me. That answer surprised me. You? Yes. She stood and walked toward the window. For years, I built Sterling Horizon around one idea. What idea? Personal feelings should never interfere with professional decisions. I nodded. That makes sense. It does. She looked back. But now the same principle is being used against me. I understood. The board was not saying she had done something wrong. They were asking whether people could trust her judgment. And for someone like Avery, that was almost worse. Are you going to fight? She was quiet. Then, yes. That sounded like the old Avery. But then she added, not the way I used to. I waited. The old me would prove I was right. And now I need to prove I can be trusted. That was different. The next day, I was not allowed inside the board meeting. And I did not ask to be. That mattered. Avery had spent months learning to respect my choices. I was not going to undo that by forcing myself into every problem she faced. Instead, I waited. For 3 hours. No updates. No messages. Finally, Mia called. Daniel. How did it go? She was quiet. Not a good sign. What happened? The board asked difficult questions. About Avery? Yes. About me? Yes. I closed my eyes. What did she say? Mia answered immediately. She told them the truth. What truth? That she has feelings for you. I sat up. She admitted it? Yes. Publicly? Yes. That was the Avery I knew. She hated unnecessary exposure. She hated giving people information they could use against her. But she had decided hiding me would be worse. What happened after? Mia hesitated. The board asked whether she would choose the company or the relationship. I felt my chest tighten. And? She asked them a question. What question? Mia laughed quietly. That's why I'm calling you. What did she ask? She asked them whether they wanted a CEO who could make honest decisions under pressure, or a CEO who had anything complicated to protect her image. I smiled. That was Avery. Not defensive. Direct. Then Mia continued. And then she did something nobody expected. What? She removed herself from voting on her own position. I froze. She did? Yes. Why? Because she said if she stayed in the room, people would wonder whether she influenced the outcome. I leaned back. Avery had spent years fighting for control. Now she was voluntarily giving it away. The vote happened without her. And that was probably the hardest thing she had ever done. An hour later, Avery called. I answered. Hey. Hey. Again. That simple word. Still strange coming from her. How are you? A pause. Waiting. I smiled. You hate waiting. Yes. Then this must be terrible. It is. I laughed. Then I became serious. Are you okay? I don't know. That answer hurt more than if she had said yes. Because Avery was not someone who admitted uncertainty. What happens if they remove you? She was quiet. Then. I don't know. Avery. I spent my whole adult life believing my position proved my value. She stopped. But you never cared about my position. No. Why? I thought about it. Because I met you before I saw the title. She said nothing. I met the woman who stayed late because an employee's family was struggling. The woman who remembered everyone's coffee order. The woman who pretended she didn't care when she clearly did. A small laugh escaped her. That last one is inaccurate. It is extremely accurate. Daniel. Yeah, thank you. For what? For seeing me before everyone else saw the CEO. I smiled. Then came the result. The board vote. Mia called again. This time, her voice sounded different. She kept her position. I exhaled. How? Mia explained. The board did not ignore the situation. They created new governance rules. Avery would no longer oversee decisions involving my division. An independent ethics committee would review future conflicts. The company would move forward with transparency. She agreed to all of it? Yes. Without arguing? Mia laughed. No. I smiled. Of course. She argued for 20 minutes. That sounds like her. But she accepted the changes. That was the important part. She did not win by proving she needed no limits. She won by showing she respected them. That evening, I went to Avery's apartment. She opened the door wearing a simple sweater. No suit. No heels. No CEO armor. You came. Yes. Why? Because you had a difficult day. I am fine. I raised an eyebrow. She sighed. Stop using my own words against me. Never. She smiled. For a moment, we just stood there. Then she said, I have an answer. I knew immediately what she meant. The question from the gala. The marriage. Avery. I know. You don't have to. I know. She looked at me. But I want to. I waited. I don't want you to marry me because I protected you. She stepped closer. I don't want you to marry me because I am successful. Another step. I don't want you to marry me because Claire hurt you. She looked directly into my eyes. I want you to marry me because when everything is removed. She paused. I am still the person you choose. That was the first time I saw Avery Sterling nervous. Not in a negotiation. Not in a boardroom. Here. With me. I smiled. You know what's funny? What? You spent years making billion-dollar decisions. Yes. And this is the thing that scares you? Yes. I laughed softly. Good. She looked confused. Good? Yes. Why? Because it means it matters. For once, she did not have a perfect answer. She just smiled. Then my phone rang. Claire. I looked at the screen. Avery noticed. You can answer. I did. Hello. Claire's voice was quiet. Daniel. What happened? I wanted to tell you something. Okay. A pause. Then. Jason is gone. I frowned. Gone? He left. Claire. He took what he could and disappeared. I closed my eyes. Not surprised. Just disappointed. Then Claire said, but that's not why I called. What then? Her voice became softer. I wanted to apologize properly. I looked at Avery. She was not listening. She was giving me privacy. I'm listening. I spent years thinking I lost because I chose the wrong person. Claire took a breath. But I think I lost because I stopped appreciating the right one. I did not know what to say. Then she added, Daniel? Yes? Don't make Avery prove she deserves you. That sentence surprised me. She already has. The call ended. I stood there quietly. Avery looked at me. What did she say? I smiled. She told me not to make you prove anything. Avery looked away. Good advice. From Claire? Yes. Are you admitting she is right? Occasionally. I laughed. Then I took Avery's hand. The same hand that had grabbed my tie at the gala. The same hand that had reached for mine when things became difficult. I have an answer too. She looked at me. And for the first time, the strongest woman I knew looked afraid. Not because she was losing. Because she cared. I smiled. Yes. Her eyes widened slightly. Daniel. Yes. I squeezed her hand. But there's one condition. What? I smiled. Stop trying to manage every detail of our future. She stared. That is unreasonable. I laughed. You're impossible. Yes. Then, finally, she smiled. And tomorrow, we would tell the world. Not because she claimed me. Not because I needed saving. Because two people who had both spent years proving they were strong finally decided they did not have to stand alone. The next morning, Avery did something I never expected. She asked me what I wanted. Not what I thought was logical. Not what would create the least trouble. Not what would protect her company. She asked what I wanted. We were standing in her kitchen, drinking coffee before work. A completely normal moment, which somehow made it more meaningful. Daniel. Yeah? About today. The announcement? She nodded. The company already knew about the board decision. The employees knew about the relationship review. Everyone was waiting to see what happened next. Avery could control a room full of executives. But this was different, because this time, the person standing beside her mattered more than the position she held. What do you want me to say? She asked. I smiled. You're asking me? Yes. That's new. I know. I looked at her. The old Avery would have prepared a statement. She would have written every word. She would have predicted every reaction. Now she was standing there asking for my opinion. I don't want you to announce something because you think you have to. I don't. I don't want to become a symbol. You won't. I don't want people to think I'm with you because of your company. Her expression softened. I know. Then? She stepped closer. I want people to know I chose you. That was Avery. Still direct. Still certain. But different. Because now her certainty came from emotion, not control. The announcement happened at noon. Not a huge event. No cameras. No dramatic stage. Just a company-wide meeting. Avery stood in front of the employees. I stood beside her. She looked exactly like the woman everyone knew. Calm. Professional. Impossible to intimidate. Then she spoke. I want to address the recent review. The room became quiet. Avery explained the changes. The independent oversight. The separation of responsibilities. The steps taken to protect the company and employees. Everything was exactly what people expected from a CEO. Then she paused. And I knew that was the difficult part. However, there is one thing I will not treat as a problem to be hidden. She looked at me. This is Daniel Reed. Everyone knew who I was. But she introduced me anyway. He has worked at Sterling Horizon because of his ability, not because of his relationship with me. Her voice remained steady. He has earned every opportunity he received. I looked at her, because that sentence was not for the employees. It was for me. For the part of me that still wondered whether standing beside someone powerful meant losing my own identity. Then she continued, I will not ask this company to ignore reality. She took a breath. I will ask this company to judge reality fairly. No dramatic confession. No exaggerated promise. Just Avery. A leader. And a woman who refused to hide. After the meeting, people slowly left. Some were supportive. Some were uncertain. That was normal. Real life did not change because one speech ended. But something important had changed. Avery had stopped trying to make everyone approve of her choices. She had made the right choice. And accepted that not everyone would understand. Later that afternoon, Claire sent me one final message. I saw the announcement. I replied, okay. A few minutes passed. Then, she really is different. I smiled. Yes. Another message appeared. Take care of her. I looked at that sentence for a while, then answered, I will. I put my phone away. And for the first time, there was no unfinished conversation from my past waiting for me. That evening, Avery and I returned to the charity gala location. The same hotel. The same ballroom. The same place where everything changed. You brought me here? Yes. Why? She looked around. Because this is where I made the biggest decision of my life. I smiled. The kiss? No. That surprised me. Then what? She looked at me. The moment before. The moment before? Yes. When I grabbed your tie. Yes. I thought you were just trying to make a statement. I was. I laughed. That sounds like you. But not the statement you think. I waited. Avery touched the knot on my tie. The same place she had grabbed that night. I spent years believing if I wanted something badly enough, I could make a plan and achieve it. That sounds exactly like you. Yes. She smiled slightly. But you were the first thing I wanted that I could not simply achieve. That was the most Avery way possible to describe love. Not fate. Not destiny. A challenge. A choice. A person she could not control. You know, I said, when you first said now you can marry me, I thought you were crazy. I know. You still think it was a good opening line? No. I raised an eyebrow. No. She shook her head. It was too direct. I laughed. You're admitting that? Yes. That might be the biggest surprise of the year. She looked at me. But I was not wrong. I smiled. No. She reached for my hand. This time, there was no audience. No ex-wife. No employees. No board. Just us. Daniel. Yeah? Do you still think I am impossible? I thought about it. Yes. She narrowed her eyes. I laughed. But I also think you're the person I want beside me. Her expression softened. That was the thing about Avery Sterling. The world saw a woman who never needed anyone. But I knew the truth. She did not need someone to save her. She needed someone who would stay when she finally allowed herself to be seen. And I was done trying to prove I was enough for people who had already decided otherwise. Because the woman standing beside me had never asked me to become someone else. She had chosen me when I had nothing to prove. And that was worth choosing back. The next morning, Avery arrived at my apartment. Not with a contract. Not with a schedule. Not with a plan. Just coffee. I opened the door and stared. What happened to the CEO who planned everything? She handed me the coffee. She is learning. Learning what? She smiled. That some things are better when they are not arranged. I looked at the woman who had once kissed me in front of an entire ballroom and told me I could marry her. Now she was standing at my door, asking if she could come in. No command. No expectation. Just a choice. And this time, I was the one who answered. Come in. That's all for today. Remember to subscribe and support us.